Okay, so this is part two. Just again, a real quick primer. So we have our tags, the HTML tag, which has a bookended one here, head and head. And again, there can be a couple other tags inside of head. Title happens to be one of them. And if I change the text in the title, that's actually what renders in this tab up here. So if I change this to Dave, hit save, and refresh it over here, the title changes. And if I add in a few more BRs, then it will, and I save that, it will add a few extra spaces because the BR stands for break. And BR is one of the few tags that does not require a closing tag. The next thing is talking about text and editing that. So I can do B, which stands for bold. So whatever is in between these bookended tags will be bold. So if I hit save, I can refresh and spaces turns bold. You can do the same thing for italics. That's I. And maybe I'll do behaves differently. So again, anything between the opening and closing italics tag will be italicized. So if I save that and refresh, behave differently is italicized. And there's another simple one called U for underline. And this is interesting in that you can have these tags. So right now, behave is italicized, differently is italicized and underlined. The italicized ends here, so than is underlined, but not italicized. So I will save that and refresh it. And you can see you get all sorts of crazy things. And actually, as it happens, the editor I'm on doesn't like the way I've done this, so I'm going to undo all that, even though that's perfectly legitimate code. And one of the standards is, instead of doing bold, the preferred tag is strong, and strong does effectively the same thing as bold, but it has a slightly different meaning, and you'll learn about that later on. The reason spaces behave differently than you would think is all bold is because I opened a strong and I did not close it. So as far as the computer knows, everything is strong after this tag, and again after this tag. So this would be no different if it was gone. It would still render as strong everything following that tag because there is no closing to it. So if I close strong, you can see the software likes it. There's no red text, and I refresh it. So that's how you can do text decorations and bold, italics, underline, very simple things. You can also change the font, and there's a couple different parameters you can have here. So I could say Arial, and I'll say this is Arial. And end the font tag. And because I want it to stick out, I'm actually going to put in a few breaks. So let me save this and refresh. Anything that was sandwiched between the font tags renders as Arial. And it's actually better to do something like Geneva, Arial, Geneva, Helvetica. Give the computer a few options, because if the person who's reading this on their website, if their browser doesn't support Arial, then it will default to Geneva and then Helvetica and then sans serif. And there's better ways to do this than how I'm showing you right now. This is just to get you started. There's more than one parameter you can put in font as well, in addition to face. Maybe I'll do it before face. It doesn't really matter if you do this before or after face, but you can do size. And I'm going to say +3. And what this does is anything that's sandwiched between this font tag, the opening tag, and the closing tag, In addition to inheriting these typefaces, will also be 3 times larger than the default, whatever the default is. So when I refresh it, this is Arial is 3 times larger. And I didn't have to do this. I could have, instead of including the size in the face and the face inside the font, we could have had one font tag for the face, another font tag for the size, and then this font tag closes the most recently opened font tag, which would be the size. And I would need to again close the original font, which is all the way back to this original one with the face. And there's other parameters you can put in there too. And again, this does in a pinch, and this is back in 1994, 1995. This is how we used to code HTML, but it's a lot different now with the cascading style sheets, and we'll get into that pretty quickly. But just know that it's perfectly fine to give your font an attribute inline. And of course, if I do a break, another break, and I type in "this is fun," of course we know that's going to appear on another line, but it will appear in Times New Roman, which is the default text, because the only things that had Arial are sandwiched between these two. Now, if I was clever, I could get rid of this font tag, which actually closed the original text, and move it here. So what happens is, this is Arial is sandwiched between the closing font tag and the opening one for the size, whereas the closing font tag for the face encompasses all of this. So now this is Arial is both +3 and Arial, as in the "this is fun" only inherits the Arial because the size has been closed. So let me save that and refresh it. And again, this isn't the best way to do it. It's a way to do it, and we'll learn more ways later on.